Okay, welcome everyone. I will go ahead and call our February meeting to order. First, we're going to have a public hearing concerning our school calendar, hours versus days. So I will welcome any comments, oral or written, concerning the 25-26 type of school calendar. And Darlene, have we had any written comments submitted to you? Okay, hearing none, I will adjourn public hearing number 1. Next, I will call to order public hearing number 2. Next I will welcome any comments, oral or written, concerning the 2025-2026 academic school calendar. And again, no written comments. Okay, I will call public hearing number 2 adjourned. And third, I will call to order our regular school board meeting. And for roll call, please note that directors Xander, Darlene, and myself are in person. Director Sand is joining us remotely. Carol, can we do a sound check to make sure that we can hear you?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you perfectly. Thank you. The Director Fadness is absent. Do I have a volunteer to read the mission and vision statements? Thanks.
At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is: the school district will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization, empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Thank you. Next, I will ask for a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Oh, excuse me. Thank you, Darlene. First, old business. We do have one item of old business. This is the second reading of Board Policy 406.1, our cell phone policy. And just in summary, we read through this the first time last month, and this is making the change from key school staff that are asked to carry a phone from carrying 2 phones, their personal phone plus a specific school phone.
We have a practice in place where some people get a stipend and some people carry a school phone. And for the most part, most of us would rather just carry one phone. It's more expensive. The stipend, I think, is $30 a month. And the cell phone was, I'm looking for Sean, maybe 45 or $50 a month. So it's not it's not like a budget reduction, but it is a little less money. And so this is just trying to make it easier on some staff and more efficient with our use of our resources. So I can't say everybody's, this is the first choice of everyone who carries a phone, but I think a majority of us would prefer to do it this way.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it also has spelled out that there are some staff that are asked that they carry a phone with them to be responsive even during off hours. So
yeah,
like thanks to staff that are in those important roles that they stay connected in that way.
We need a motion on this, or
We would.
I'll move to approve the cell phone policy.
I'll second the second reading of Board Policy 406.1.
Okay. Hearing a motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now I will accept a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda for this evening.
And I'll second it.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thanks, Carol. You're great.
Yeah.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of the consent items and minutes from our January 13th meeting. Bills and personnel.
I would like to say that there are three personnel changes at the middle school that I would really like to just make a comment that the loss of Lisa Witzke and Dean Beckman and Jennifer Larson will be really felt at the middle school. And I would like to really thank them for all of their years of commitment to Decorah Middle School.
Yeah, certainly.
I'm making an assumption here. Lauren Stort's the volunteer assistant coach and the type of recommendation is that. I'm assuming adding him.
The type of recommendation is, he's just being recommended as the volunteer assistant.
Adding him. Okay.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, it's, yeah, I get what you're saying. It
Yeah.
probably should, I wouldn't say hire.
No,
it would
but-
be- It would, but it's not a resignation.
Let's approve.
It's an addition.
Yeah.
Can I just ask one question about the bill
Yeah.
listing? So on the bill listing in the general fund where it talks about number 5 is Alliant Energy, the $18,476. Is that a monthly bill?
There's many monthly bills, so it could be a couple of buildings put together.
Okay. So would that be the entire monthly bill that we would pay to Alliant, or would there be multiple listings every month that we would pay to Alliant typically?
It might be some that are prepaid and some that are listed down below, and then you might even see some in the extra bills.
So Carol, would your question also be, what's our monthly electric bill?
That would actually be my question, yeah.
How about if we work on that? That feels like a March report out, kind of give a summary of what our monthly electric bill is.
I was gonna say, just looked it up, a low could be about $34,000 up to $52,000 a month.
Could you say that one more time, please, so I can write that down?
A low about 36,000 or 34,000 up to about $52,000 a month.
There's some audience members who are gonna make sure they turn the lights off in their room.
Great.
From now on.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that information, and I think it's important information for us to be aware of going forth as we plan the new building.
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion to approve consent items.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda is open forum communication from the public. And there are names on our list. Okay, so before we begin, I'm going to read a statement. The goal of the district is to provide a guaranteed and viable curriculum for every student in the Decorah Community School. The open forum is time set aside for the board to hear comments from the public. Comments are not limited to items or topics on the agenda, but are limited to matters within the board's authority and are not to extend more than 3 minutes in length. As per Iowa code, the board cannot discuss matters not posted on the agenda. Also, please remember that comments are being made in a public forum. Any comments made that are considered to be inflammatory or libelous may be subject to legal action. So there's 2 that have added their names to public comment. I'm gonna time on my phone. There'll be 3 minutes. I'm not gonna scream at you when time's up, but I will give you a friendly little alert that your time is running short. And thank you all for being here. Okay, first is Janet Falk. You're welcome wherever you feel comfortable. And our camera is sitting right in front of me, and it has a 360 camera. And
It will find you.
it will find you. And it's voice activated, so when you start talking, it will look at you.
Hello, I am Janet Falk. I am the TK teacher here in Decorah. The Decorah mission statement clearly says learning, thriving, and building a legacy. We know that all kids can learn, but we also know that kids learn in different ways and at different paces. TK offers our youngest children just that, a chance to learn and thrive at their own pace when they are ready. The kindergarten expectations of today are not the same as they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. We have more demands and expectations placed on our youngest learners. But just because those expectations have changed does not mean that all 5-year-olds have changed to match that. Every year, we have students coming to us with no preschool experience, low confidence in themselves, or low academic interest and only want to play. And most importantly, they need social and emotional maturity. By giving these youngest the benefit of another year to grow while focusing on hands-on engaging learning activities and teaching and practicing social and emotional skills, we give them the chance to do what our mission says, and that is to thrive. I've seen firsthand kids walk into my room lacking confidence to do the simplest tasks, such as take a pencil and write 1 letter of their name. This lack of confidence can also stem to all the other areas of their schooling. But by the end of the school year in TK, they've gained confidence in themselves and their abilities. They're excited to show off what they know and even practice this on their own. TK helps change their mindsets. They now view themselves as capable learners that they didn't see themselves as before. Parents have reported seeing the same thing and improved problem solving and handling of emotions. They report what an impact TK has made on their child, not only in kindergarten, but in many years to come. It's a hard reality that all of Iowa's schools are in a crunch with numbers and funding. But while we know incoming enrollment is low, it also gives us the gift of small class sizes, which we know is advantageous for our early learners. Just because incoming numbers are low does not mean the diversity of needs is low. If we take away teachers and resources from our youngest kids, it will have detrimental effects on our children. Other schools that have done this are bearing witness to this right now with increased interventions, IEPs, and retention levels. The kids can't afford for us to cut classes. We have to make the decision to be proactive, not reactive. Cuts to lower elementary should be every school's last resort, not a first choice. Let's make the needs the priority so they can build a lasting positive legacy in our community. Thank you.
Okay, and I failed to mention before, but during this public comment time, the board will listen and there won't be back and forth conversation. So thank you, Jen. Much appreciated. Larry?
Hi, my name is Larry Schuiler. I'm a parent and a business owner here in the community. I have 3 kiddos, 4.5, 6.5, and 8.5, and 2 of my children have experienced TK, and Mrs. Falk and Mrs. Eink, and the benefit of TK in our family. It's a program that I had never had growing up and had as a young kid, would have benefited greatly from more time. Beyond that, doing some research based on doing some researching about and wanting to come here and advocate to keep TK, things that just want to bring to the space is with the removal of the ADA, it seems like early childhood education would be ways to do more preventative work rather than trying to fix Band-Aids later where kids might have already fallen through the cracks. And that leads me to believe that repeating kindergarten is not necessarily the best option for these youngest learners because, as Janet mentioned, the kindergarten program moves so rapidly. And so if it's moving fast at a pace when they're younger and they cannot keep up, repeating it again can be detrimental for so many reasons on these young learners. And as a community, I sent a letter today with nearly a dozen families and their children's experiences, so not just mine, of how their children excelled, had an opportunity to move at a slower pace. And so as a community, it feels like TK has been here for decades. And so when we look ahead at the new school, that was talked about with an area for comprehensive early childhood education. That seems that TK would be a part of that. That feels synonymous with that area and what you're hoping for in that building. And so I hope as a parent and community member, I'd like to advocate for more creative solutions that I also understand, right? Like we're not in a windfall here. Like there are a lot of issues coming into a lot of hard times coming into public education. But that we can consider creative solutions that don't cut the benefits of these early childhood education programs like transitional kindergarten.
Thanks, Lori. Would anyone else like to add their name to the list for public comment? Okay. Brittany, come on in.
I'm Brittany Todd. I'm also a business owner and parent in the community. Maureen Janet said it really well. I have 3 kids who have done TK, 3 boys who have done TK whose birthdays are in August. Fast forward, you're graduating 3 boys who are just turning 18 into the real world. And no, I didn't plan that. And let me just tell you that the grace that is given in TK, their test scores now, I can tell you there wouldn't be a lot of green boxes on their fast scores, which we just got back this last week. And that can sound a bit selfish. Instead, I have 3 kids who are excelling at what they're doing right now, but I also had a kid who went through the ADA program, and to cut both of those things right now is so critical to the success and the confidence in every single word that you're hearing these people say. Obviously, it's a bit emotional, and for a lot of people in this community too. If you have a kid who needs TK, which I had last year when there was only going to be 1 class, our immediate response was, I guess he's doing kindergarten twice. We just knew he wouldn't be able to make it out of kindergarten successfully. To go into a classroom, assuming your kid's going to fail, this is one of the ways that this can help an entire group of kids be successful from the beginning. And it was also stated, and I just wanted to reiterate, it will otherwise come out of our budgets later. There will be more IEPs, there will be more interventions, there'll be kids getting pulled for speech or just one-on-one work that they're instead getting in this room of TK learners that are at their level, that are all moving forward in at the same speed. I can't say enough amazing things about the fact we also got to have the same teacher for all 3 of our kids. It wasn't necessarily fair how the 3rd kid got to have this amazing teacher in the room, who was asked to be in that position when was originally going to be elsewhere. And I think that's crucial as well, to be able to have the teachers who know the material and understand why kids do that. Okay, it's not just, oh, we don't want them in full-time. No, we have that ability now. We have the ability to have kids in full-time and understand what a full school day looks like without the pressures of having to know all the things that they maybe have 0 experience with. We don't even have enough space for everybody to do preschool in this community. It's definitely getting better, but this is just another way that we can ensure that at the end of their high school career, we are still one of the top schools in the state.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you. Whenever you're comfortable, if you could come and put your full name and address on the sign-in paper, that would be great. Is there anyone else that would like to make an open comment? We'll move on to the next item in our agenda, which is a presentation from the Positive Behavior Support Team. So we have 3 staff from the district that are here to present. Thank you for being here. Thanks. And when you begin, please introduce yourselves and tell us. Yeah, tell us about you.
I'm Carolyn Rumman. I'm the positive behavior support at Perry Elementary. Beth Bauman, I do positive behavior supports for TK through 2nd grade. And Elise Bennett, I do positive behavior supports for 3rd and 4th grade. Carrie Lee. Actually go back. Okay, I just decided to bring in some visuals so you could kind of have a visual to go along with the stories we're going to share. I guess just starting out, this is a picture of my classroom. It looks a little bit different than typical classrooms because the students we serve have some pretty exceptional needs. I've got a space in my classroom where kids can kind of work off some extra energy if they have it. A space where kids can just have some quiet alone time if that's what they need. Flip one more. A space where in the morning I've got kids that come in for like a morning check-in. They can do some quiet puzzling, some yoga, some artwork, just if they might need kind of a slower, softer start to their day. And an affirmation station where I really try and focus with kids the importance of positive self-talk and a growth mindset. While most of the students that are in our school are thriving with just the general education environment, we do have some kids that have pretty exceptional needs, whether it be struggles with their home life or struggles with mental health. Some examples of students that I serve, or that I should say we serve. We have kids in our district that do experience homelessness. I served a student last year that lived in a camper with his sister, mother, and dogs throughout the winter. We've got kids with parents who are incarcerated. I have a student whose father is serving time in prison and was recently placed in temporary foster care as his mother served some time as well. We've got students that deal with domestic abuse at home, parents that are struggling with alcohol and drug addiction, and just have a very hard time showing up ready to learn every day. They want to do well. They deserve the opportunity to be loved and nurtured and just have a space that is safe and that is for them, that sees them and hears them and cares for them. And they want to be in the classroom with their peers, and they are most of the time. But there are just days where they come in or moments throughout the day where they have either needs that are not being met, like maybe they're hungry and they need to go somewhere to get some food, or maybe they are crying or becoming dysregulated and becoming frustrated. And sometimes these moments lead to kids yelling or throwing things or creating other unsafe behaviors that is really scary for other students to experience. And so it's just very critical that there are staff members who are available to meet the student where they're at, to get them to a safe space, and to be there with them until they're able to be regulated and go back to their general education classroom. They're great kids and they need some extra help. I don't know, I think Elise is going to kind of talk about what things were like before there was a positive behavior support teacher.
Yep. So I started with Decorah in fall of 2016 as a special education teacher in a level 2 classroom. I did academics and behavior. At the time, at least at Carrie Lee, there was no positive behavior support person. And I think things were just kind of starting to get rolling a little bit to make way for that position at John Klein.
2018.
Yeah, okay. I can say that I had
while my roster was fairly small, I had a very busy day. Myself and my other special education colleagues, were the positive behavior support people. And the teachers. I mean, everybody was really, pulling their own weight. It was kind of an all hands on deck situation. And there were times when, I would not be able to teach my academic students, because I would need to, help a student who was maybe in crisis or, was escalating quickly. And I did have quite a few paras that I worked with, and I still do to this day. And I value them so much. We couldn't do our jobs without them. But it was definitely a bit of a tug of war, or a pull of efforts in trying to teach my kids academics and teach my kids positive behavior skills, and be there to assist my paras, and be a person who could manage all of those things calmly and safely. And it felt like I was a juggler sometimes, trying to manage all of those things. And I did notice that a lot of paras were getting worn down. A lot of teachers were getting worn down, trying to manage behaviors and academics in their classrooms. Paras trying to fill in for me in my academic situation when I was trying to manage behaviors. And that just didn't feel fair to me. It didn't feel fair to the paras. It didn't feel fair to the teachers, the students, most importantly. I mean, a lot of us felt like we weren't fully meeting the needs of the students. And there were so many kids at that time who didn't have IEPs, who it just felt like, you know, the teachers were almost running on loop in a broken record style, talking about all the kids that they felt were falling through the cracks, behaviorally and socially, in social emotional, the area of social emotional learning. And we, as special education directors, did the best we could to help those students and those teachers, but we could only do so much. The principal at the time also stepped in where she could. She was a lot more occupied at the time because of those behaviors. And again, it was all hands on deck. And I do feel like it was like a light at the end of the tunnel, or a little ray of hope, when we heard whisperings about a positive behavior support teacher. My special ed colleagues and I remember where I was when we were talking about it, when we found out that John Klein got one. And we thought, oh my gosh, this could be our chance. And so I went to the superintendent at the time. I talked about our position, and how difficult it was, and how we didn't feel like we could go on that same way for very long. And it just kind of started to feel like things fell into place. Carolyn was hired, and Betsy came in a little bit after that, right, or at the same time. And it felt like one thing led to another that led to another, and the therapeutic grant happened, and it just has felt like we're in this really wonderful situation where we can actually meet these students' needs, and we aren't just trying to survive the day. I feel like we can get through the day and thrive. So teachers, students, paras, all of us. Yeah.
So in 2018, I spoke to the board. Only 2 people here were here at that time.
Well, and Ron.
But he's not here tonight, so.
We'll honor him.
But I did speak as a kindergarten teacher for the positive behavior support teacher for John Klein. So the board approved that in 2018 year, and then 2 years later, they approved it for Carrie Lee. What I'm here to speak to you about today is some of the key responsibilities that a PBS teacher does. I do also want to give kudos to our therapeutic grant because that allows us to be able to also help serve students that don't necessarily have IEPs, but they have what's called a DBIP, which is a Decorah BIP, which is a Decorah behavior intervention plan for students who are struggling to hopefully see if what we can do and put into place helps the students before they get to an IEP. And so those are interventions that we put into place, and that is what our therapeutic grant helps fund. For example, I've gotten a trampoline for my classroom. Now, it's not a huge, like 12-foot trampoline that kids are blowing through the roof on. It's a tiny one, but it helps them do what's called hard work, which then helps reset their minds, especially at the lower elementary level. And so through the therapeutic grant and all the hard work that has been put into that, we have been able to get those supplies. Also through the therapeutic grant, I have been able to get interactive read alouds for not only my classroom, but I can give them out to other classrooms. One of the interactive read alouds that I had just done with a student of mine was called The Invisible Boy, and it's on empathy. And it's teaching those empathy skills to learn friendship skills, help with that friendship communication. And so then I was able to send a game home with them, with the student, that they could play with their parents as well. And it works on those skills. And so it's also connecting our home to school relationships as well. So now with our key responsibilities of a PBS teacher, we do conduct assessments, teacher interviews, and observations to understand the root cause of challenging behaviors and develop individualized behavior intervention plans, which is our DBIP, with specific strategies and measurable goals. We also work closely with our AEA when they come in and do FBAs, because they're the ones that come in and do our functional behavior assessments to get on that IEP process. We utilize positive reinforcement techniques, clear expectations, consistent routines, and proactive strategies to promote positive behaviors within the classroom environment. We also deliver targeted interventions to students with challenging behaviors, including social skills instruction, self-regulation strategies, and conflict resolution techniques. We train and support classroom teachers in implementing positive behavior support strategies, including providing feedback on classroom practices and behavior management tactics. We monitor student behavior using data collection systems to track progress on intervention goals and make necessary adjustments to plans. We regularly communicate with parents regarding their children's behavior, their progress on intervention, and strategies to support positive behavior at home, especially now that our Achieve system, which is our IEP system, has went live. The experience that we have experience working with students exhibiting challenging behaviors in various settings, including classroom and small group instruction. We have an understanding of positive behavioral intervention and supports, which is our PBIS system, which we use TK through 4, and principles in implementing those strategies. We have the ability to communicate effectively with students, parents, teachers, and administrators. We have a proficiency in collecting and analyzing and interpreting behavioral data to inform decision-making. But most importantly, what we do is we want to make sure that students have a place that they are heard, loved, and accepted, no matter what their circumstances may be.
You guys have any questions for us?
Bravo to all of you, because your work not only is affecting and giving words and helping students articulate what they're, because I'm sure that, you know, there's a lot of adults that can't even articulate their feelings, right?
And I talk about that with kids all the
You
time.
are giving them lifelong skills, and I'm so pleased to hear that there's a school to home connection too, that they can start that work at home, and great work in scoring this therapeutic grant to make all this work.
Huge thanks to Shanna. She is the one who implemented that.
So, and there's also some supplemental documents, right? That you brought along, and I have to be honest, I'm really surprised at what I consider to be a higher percentage than I expected of students receiving services through your care.
Yes. Next year, I just sat the other day, figured out I will have 10 students between first and second grade. That does not include kindergarten or TK.
Mhm.
That will be served most likely through IEP services.
Mhm.
And one thing to add, they talk a lot about the grant. So we got the initial funding, but we do get continuous funding at 1.5 per student that they serve that is not on IEP, but that is on a DBIP. So that does help support the continuation of these really fantastic services.
That's great. That was my next question.
Yes,
And
yes. So we got the
great.
original just over $250,000, but then we'll continue to get
Yeah.
funding to help. support
It's best
students who
grant.
aren't IEP ready or don't need an IEP,
Right.
but need that additional support. So
It
if
helps
they're
fill
on
in the
a
gaps.
DBIP and do kind of the requirements of the therapeutic classroom and find.
Is that a state grant or is it a federal grant?
It's through the state.
It is a state grant.
It's a state grant and it's the best grant ever because it reimburses itself. So not that we couldn't run out of money, but it generates revenue every year, which is fantastic.
It also funded the new guidance counselor at Carrie Lee, and the guidance counselors are a huge part, which you'll hear about, I think, next month or the month after, but a huge collaboration. So that funding can extend beyond these classrooms to help support students in other capacities outside those walls as well.
So best practice is to have the school counselor and us, the PBS teachers, by each other. And this year I was blessed enough to be able to have my coworker Amanda Hahn in a room right next to mine.
Mhm.
And we actually have a connecting door to our rooms. And we do, as I know you guys as well do at Carrie Lee, is Amanda and I work very closely together. So there might be some things that I'm like, ooh, I'm not really sure on this. And I'll call her in and she will sit and we will co-partner together to work with this child and vice versa. Now, her time is constricted because she is teaching classes
Mhm.
as well. And then she also has other things that she's doing. Like she's starting this amazing program of Lego League, it's called, and it's teaching kids how to work together. And so once somebody is like the construction person, somebody is the directions person, and they all have to work together as a group.
Mhm.
So what she does and what I do and what Matt does and what Carolyn and Elise do, they all work together
Mhm.
to make sure that we're meeting the best needs of all of our kids.
Yes, it is very much the same at Carrie Lee and working closely with Matt. I mean, the three of us just in that same building feel like we couldn't do it without each other. And then when we all get together as a group, it is just a really beautiful thing to talk about the behavior and the needs of the district and the needs of our students. Yeah, I mean, Matt has been a huge just a huge resource in terms of reaching out to families and trying to provide them with resources. And so, yeah, we also work very, very closely with them on the regular.
And I'm assuming the behavior support was most needed at this primary level of fourth grade or TK through fourth grade.
I would say just a little bit of a difference. I feel like our job focuses more on helping kids learn the skills for self-regulation, whereas our guidance counselors are able to kind of work a little bit more with their personal struggles at home and connect with parents. And so we work super closely together, and there's a little bit of a difference in our purpose. So
And the guidance counselors will talk about that next month.
yeah, exactly. So
Don't steal all their.
no,
No.
I just wanted to separate.
But I would second that, Cindy, thinking about preschool through fourth is the first bus stop. So before they have, kids are coming who don't have a lot of these skills in place, and we're seeing that more and more mental health challenges. And so they kind of start here, and this is where they start maybe getting that, or if they need an IEP, or if they need counseling services, from that. But it really starts here, that they build that up and that foundation that then goes on to middle school and high school.
And I've been in this district since 2005. And I was teaching kindergarten during the COVID year. And I remember coming back from the COVID year and teaching kindergarten that year as well, and how much the kids seem to have changed. Just because of the lack of being able to get in and have structure. Like a lot of them do not have structure during the day. And it's because parents are busy. I have 3 children. Some days I'm like, a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest. You know, it's like hard. It's really hard. You don't know where you're going or what time it is. And so, I totally get it, but our kids are changing and we need to keep evolving with those changes with our students and our children because they're our kids. I love every single one of my kids like they're my own. And I tell them that every day. And in fact, today, one of my kiddos was walking down the hall with another teacher and she said, you're gonna have a great day. Do you know why? And he goes, because you feel it in your heart. I say that to my kids every day. You're gonna have a great day because I can feel it in my heart. And they just need to hear that and know that. So.
Thank you for all you do. Any other
you.
questions or comments?
I'll laud the work you're doing. I did similar in a 5th grade classroom setting years ago now, but seeing the differences what you're providing offers, and then being in a different school setting where you have to play teacher, counselor, guidance, all of the things, it's impossible. So I'll laud the work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all so much for hearing us. Thank you.
Thanks for
you.
being here. Okay, next we'll move on to new business. And the first item under new business is review of transitional kindergarten.
Okay, so earlier this month, we kind of met with the admin team to kind of review where we're at with kindergarten and transitional kindergarten. One of the things that is a little alarming is our kindergarten numbers for next year. We predict about 92 kindergartners, and when I say kindergartners, children that would be kindergartners, transitional kindergartner, and that's down almost 30 from what we have now. We have rec 121 is the number. And so when we look at 121, we divide those into 5 kindergartens and 1 transitional kindergarten. And so the math's pretty good on that. You're about 20 students in each room. But the one thing with transitional kindergarten, we do try to keep that at 18, and we know that kind of becomes a little bit of makes it a little tight with those numbers. And we've had other years where we've had more students, you know, and so when you add and you can only divide it into 5 rooms, it gets a little difficult. There's also the process of just the parents' desire for TK. And I feel like in my 3 years here, I'm now looking to Rick, we always seem to have a number of about 28 that want transitional kindergarten, just more than 1 section, but not enough for 2 sections. And of course, then that causes some toughness on our kindergarten numbers. But so we spent some time working on pros and cons as an administrative team. Shannon, I'm gonna give you just the floor in just a second and let you, so we certainly, we didn't come up with an idea of, hey, let's talk about TK, because we woke up one day and said, let's just get rid of it and ruin people's lives. We're just trying to look at the best way to move forward. We did lose 50 students in enrollment. So last year, I guess the year we're currently in, so we're just trying to make sure we look at all budgets and be flexible with that as we move forward. Certainly, I don't think I think one of the big things is we recognize the fact that TK is appropriate and very helpful for some of our students. And so we're not gonna argue the academic part as much on that, but there's just parts about the whole process that we at least want to review. So, and I'll take a pause. I'm gonna turn it over to you, Sharon.
Great. So yeah, I think Dr. Crow is exactly right. You know, none of us are anything but pro TK. I mean, I was a TK teacher. I think you all know that I believe early childhood is kind of my biggest passion. But the numbers are very alarming and concerning. With that, the thing to keep in mind is that since the state really no longer recognizes TK, they are considered kindergarten students. So we are looking at 92 students across 6 sections. So we have 5 and 1 because that is how the state sees it, right or wrong. That's where we're at. So I think our concern, and the concern that I continuously brought up that we need to have conversations, is as we're talking about numbers and talking about the concerns in the district, I would advocate every day for low numbers in early childhood and elementary. But if we were to divide 92 over 6 sections, we're looking at 14, 15 kids per class. Now, if we can do that, fantastic. Let's end there and continue on as we are with 6 sections. And I would advocate for that any day. Realistically, are we a district that can support sections of 14 to 15 kids? My guess is probably, unfortunately, not right now. I wish that wasn't the case. So that being said, I told Janet, I've tried to be very transparent in this process. I agree with everything that she said 100%, and it's true. There are so many benefits for TK. Where we're struggling is the ripple effect, or what would happen if we do have to cut a section. And so then it's 4 kindergarten, 1 TK. There's a lot of lasting impacts, a lot of lasting ripples that impact not only these students who will be impacted, but it truly impacts the entire grade, the kindergarten teachers, and it's going to have that ripple effect where it's going to impact first, second, third, fourth, and eventually coming to middle school. We're looking at the scary possibility of having become a 4-section building if the following year, and you can kind of look at, we shared some charts with the board that were then shared with the district today. So if we look at that ripple effect, if we keep TK this year, next year going to first grade, we're looking at 74 students. And so how we can think about first grade, 74 students and keeping 5 sections is a really tricky question. And so then again, that is going to continue on, and that is going to make the reverse effect the next year. And we're going to have this weird bubble. In the past, there's been challenges, definitely challenges, as Dr. Crone alluded to. It's always a really difficult number. Too many for 1, not enough for 2. And that leads to every year, the community is really upset. And I understand that, because I do value TK, and I understand I had a young kid and had to go back and forth with the decision as well. But when we look at it, really thinking about that long-term, what is best for the system. There's some other struggles with TK, is that we do have more and more students who we've developed all this criteria that's based on social, emotional, age, background. So we have a whole list of criteria that we need to go through, including input from preschool teachers. We have more and more parents who are wanting it for the age alone, which is important, but sometimes it's not the best place for those students for a variety of reasons, if they are ready academically and socially. The other thing that I would just caution going forward, and maybe is, what happens if we have 13 kids who want it this year? What's that going to do to our 4 kindergarten classes that remain? It's going to make those numbers huge. And that's what we saw a few years back when we ended up with 2 sections. And then we reduced kindergarten, as we had massive kindergarten classes. And I don't think anyone in here wants to see 23, 24 students in kindergarten. And if you look at the projections, when we look at that bubble, and again, please note at the top that these things, they could deviate. This is our best information that we have right now. But I don't think it serves any kids, any students, staff, or families well to think that we're gonna have kindergarten classes of 22, 23 point something. So would I ever encourage a recommendation to get rid of TK? No, I wouldn't. But if we're looking at declining enrollment and have to look at, does it make more sense to go 4 and 1 or 5 and 0? I have to look at the numbers moving forward and what's best for the system, including those students that are going to be in TK. With that, I guess I would say, I know that these teachers are absolutely amazing. I know they're going to work together with our PBS teachers and our interventionists right now to make sure that kids who need additional support have that. And so I think the biggest thing to me is, again, we know how important TK, how awesome it is, and I would advocate for it any day of the week if we can keep 6 sections. But if we can't, I do think we really, really have to look at the ripple effect on the system and how it's going to impact hundreds of kids and staff members all the way through middle school as we go. With that, the other thing that I would keep in mind is just the climate and culture. It is really, really hard. They're often here with my instructional coach friends where they are not knowing often, but when you don't know what your position is going to be, if you're going to be moved from K to TK to TK to K, it's really hard. And that's a lot of stress on your educators, and you have some pretty awesome educators here. So that's something else to consider as well. So I would encourage to look at the long-term impact, and if we do have to reduce a section, to consider that. Keeping in mind that then we would have to have a lot of further conversations about, okay, how are we going to support these teachers, these staff, these students, so that we don't start the year thinking we're going to fail, but how we're going to help every kid in kindergarten succeed, knowing that they might need extra support. At the very least, I would encourage not making, I guess, a final decision possibly to keep it until we know the official numbers. I think we're gonna be in a really, really rough spot if we get the numbers and it's 13. You know, what's that going to do to our 14 kindergarten
And
classes?
the time when you would get those official numbers is in the meeting that was delayed, right? That's
Yeah.
taking place later this
Yeah.
month.
So we delayed the meeting because we knew that parents would have those questions. And we also delayed our parent teacher conferences for preschool, which will be taking place later in March, as well as our collaborative partners. Because we know that those are a lot of conversations that are going to happen at those meetings.
Mhm.
So it's a big decision, but I think the tricky thing is going to be, yeah, if you keep 4 and 1 and you end up with 13 students who want it, that's
Mhm.
going to have, again, a big impact back here. Or you're going to have, again, as Rick said, 28. And then are we going to have 2 classes and it continues to make a very, very hard process. And I do think it has a lasting impact on the rest of the system.
Rick, do you have anything to add?
First of all, I think a lot has been said, and I'm not disagreeing with the value, and again, what Janet said, and parents, again, it's been here, I've been here 20 years.
Mhm.
It was up and running before I came. Now, again, that's changed over the years, it's part-time and half days, and then 3 days a week, and then once we built it up where it was 5 full days, and again, then we were receiving full funding, okay, that was when we were. Again, our numbers were pretty strong. It was always an issue. When I say an issue, but that's a strong word maybe, but there was always this bubble every year of, okay, I think there was years we had 12 kids. And we had a program. And then there was other years, we had 40.
Mhm.
So that number has always been in flux. And when you have those, there's always gonna have that, as we said, a ripple effect or how that impacts other students. And I think knowing now, again, we tried to share kind of, again, we know these are all subject to change, but again, the data we have with our current preschool programs, for incoming and the year after that, because we've done open houses with those numbers, we know birth rates are down. We also know in Decorah, unfortunately, again, there's no housing to be had. And if there is, for a new family, a young family, or, a family with young kids starting out, that's tough. So I mean, right there, there's 3 strikes basically kind of against our school system and our numbers and, coming in from the very beginning. So I think that's the piece. As we all know, we've been undercut, with funding for, 15 plus years in a row. And now again, the ripple effect that's having not only on us, but other districts is profound. And I think knowing those numbers and knowing if that, right now, knowing those numbers aren't gonna get us back up to where we see 120 kids, in TK or entering, or, even once you get into that for 110, in any class, it may be few and far between. So again, I think part of it is how can we take our system and how can we do maybe look at a different way of better, giving our kids support. As Shannon and Janet and everybody else says, absolutely. We know research and we know that we pay me now or pay me later. So if we can give them all the supports and interventions, the younger, the better. Okay, we are gonna be, and the better off those kids are gonna be, and the families, our community, our society in general. So I think those things don't ever change. I think it's just a matter of how those supports, are gonna be best met. Because again, if I'm sitting in a classroom and I know I'm gonna have 23 kids, my child's gonna have 23 kids in that classroom, okay? But they could have potentially 20 or 21, or even smaller, depending on how big those class sizes are with TK, that, those bubble things make a difference. So again, not saying it's now, not saying it's in the future, but it is things that people need to be aware of. And I think, that's basically all, I think, that we just have to, as a system, look at those things because, we're gonna have to look at things a lot differently. We know already public education is in a place that it's never been before, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better any day soon. So we've got to do everything we possibly can and look at different ways of doing things. And again, this might be a way, not saying it's the best way, okay? But it's a way that, again, going back to this stability, and I think, you know, again, some of the things we shared just on a few years and how that could impact, you know, the system, you know, for the next several years and then continuing on, you know, are things that I think just have to be considered.
One thing I would add quickly too is that something we've done with my position that's here now, and we'll see what, you know, happens with that, but is really building up our preschool collaboration with the 4-year-old preschool funding. And so there was talk about if there's enough places, there currently are enough spots for all preschoolers in Decorah, and we've worked really hard to ensure that everyone does have a space. And we continue to have conversations about how we can make that even more accessible, you know, possibly thinking about transportation and things like that, because we do know the value of early childhood. So as much as we can get them in the door as preschoolers, can help build up that capacity so that when they're ready, they're as ready as they can be for kindergarten. So I just wanted to add that as well.
And I think one of the things that we need to know moving forward is just maybe what the verbiage or what the options are, because we've got coming up, is it February 26th? Do I have that right? That's the rescheduled date. 25th, okay. So that's when they come in, and we'll get the recommendations from the preschools. And if we say there's a possibility of continuing TK, we get the one variable, as Shanna said, is we don't really know how many are gonna want TK. Typically, I don't wanna say 28 is the average, but it always feels like it's more than one section.
In recent history, that's been.
Yeah, and that's with 120 students. If you take the ratio down and, so it would be too easy if we had 18 that wanted TK this year. So just kind of, but that's an unknowable thing until we get into the process.
The tricky thing we find too is just the data also, we have a really clear data system and I'd be happy to show anyone who wants to see it eventually, but that goes through and basically gives points for different things like whether they've had preschool, their academics. So we do put a lot of work into it. And it does just seem that no matter what, it doesn't equal out the way that is beneficial. Sometimes one of the struggles is that we have kids that maybe parents are wanting, and it's not for maybe the purpose of TK, you know, like they don't have a social emotional concern, they don't have academic concerns, and that also is making a really weird bubble for the system as well. We have kids who are doing TK and then decide they want to go straight to first. Whereas like legally TK is K, but it's not a replacement for kindergarten. And so it just makes some really weird things as well.
Yeah, and I think Tim mentioned that it's worth looking at the system to make sure that it's running the best that it possibly can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was super impressed that we have like a screening with like a scale, and we've developed a system it's not just throwing darts at the wall. We're actually looking at the children and saying, who's a good candidate for TK? And a scoring system and recommendations from daycare, and it's about as good as you can get. But there's always disappointment every year when children don't get into TK.
Right.
But we know having 2 sections is, we don't have enough for 2 sections, so we shall see.
And some of what's being brought up right now, so I'm gonna go a little bit more off of Mr. Varney's point. I think there's some question marks in what the future holds. And so, you know, does the Iowa legislature fully fund 4-year-old preschool?
Correct.
If that happens, then that takes the burden off of parents to potentially have to shoulder 3 hours of childcare in the afternoon and maybe 45 minutes in the morning. And I'll speak as not on behalf of my wife, but for her perhaps. She's the one that takes the brunt of the labor while I'm coaching. And then the back half of the year, it's me doing it and not her. But how do you cover the time of day when preschool ends before the end of the workday? Where does that coverage happen? And it's non-existent. It doesn't happen unless your preschool also offers extended care beyond. So my wife happens to be the board president for Kinderhouse. Those hours have stretched now over the last 3 years. So when Henry, my oldest, started, that wasn't possible. Like, yep, we're gonna pick him up at 12:30. That's when preschool ends. Take him to private childcare because that's the only option because you couldn't get in anywhere else. But that's not possible for every student. So one of the big questions is, will the state fund something that actually helps parents?
And I would add the other thing that's up kind of with the legislation is collaborations with daycare. So that could be further conversations that we've kind of had. I talked with Cindy a little bit about that, you know, how can we continue to enhance our preschool programs? Because you're right. Those of us who are very lucky, you know, I paid for Earl and Earl could take my kid because we don't do transportation out to Share Darling, who's fantastic and it was great. But for a lot of families, that's not accessible. So thinking about how we can boost our preschool, if there are grants like that, which it sounds optimistic, at least that one there'll be grants for, whether or not they go to full funding. The other thing that Rick and I have talked at length about is just how can we work through possible transportation, because that's we do have some kids right now. We have one that can't come because of transportation. So how we make that because we do have amazing preschool programming, build those up to get the support they need. So I think there's a lot of great conversations and opportunities with some of that grant funding.
Because right now, TK and kindergartners can ride the school bus, but preschool students cannot.
Correct.
We've all heard from lots of people since our agenda came live last Thursday. I spent much of my weekend on the phone or replying to emails and much of today. And the standout things that I heard one story of a parent that she or her husband were late to work every single day for a year because their child was in preschool. I heard from parents that said, my child has not been to preschool because we can't swing it with schedule or transportation costs. So this is clearly a gap in services for our population. I think that in addition to this gap in having all-day care, we live in an expensive community where it's, you know, many households have both people working, and that's a gap. We have a unique gap of low enrollment this year because of that was a perfect storm of a lot of different issues. We have ESA and vouchers against us. So not only do we live in an expensive community and we've had this weird bubble of enrollment change, but we also have families that can have public dollars that can go to private schools. Enrollment matters. Enrollment matters, and kids going to school at TK and at John Klein funds our programming TK through 12. And we had a financial planner that attended our January board meeting. I thought about what he said for days after. These next 5 years are going to be really hard. And with so many unknowns in our future, it's our responsibility to make thoughtful, strategic decisions that are the best for the kids. And there's going to be a lot of hard emotional problems that come up in the future, but we really need to be thoughtful about resource allocation and how we delegate those services. Another question I had that I think that is worth mentioning, we just passed a $38 million school bond, which is great. Thank God we passed that. There's going to be a new school in a couple of years. Can't some of that be used to fill in some of the needs that we have now? Unfortunately, no, it can't. School financing is very complex. That is funding for a capital construction project that cannot be mixed with general funds that fund our teachers. Brad, do you have anything to share, or Carol, or anything different that you've heard or to add to the conversation?
I mean, when you talked about the ripple effect, you're talking about the small class size moving forward and having to, I mean, if we have 74 go through,
5 sections in first grade.
it's going to affect that, looking
And
at,
I hate to be the guy who brings this up, but if we have 74 going into first grade, we probably wouldn't have 5 sections. I hate to be the wet blanket but we have to say that, we have to acknowledge that would be a challenge of our budget, so I'm sorry for cutting you off.
no, that's fine. And then I was looking at the email, going forward, the 26, 27 looks very similar,
Unfortunately.
so I mean, that would maybe, if it keeps that bubble maybe a little more. It's really hard to make a decision when you don't know the numbers.
You don't know the numbers and it is super stressful on an elementary school when you have that shifting around. And I still remember first day with teachers back in Converse Elementary in Beloit, Wisconsin. And the biggest concern the third grade teachers had was who's moving next year. And I was like, that's 365 days away, but that's the biggest deal. That's reality. They weren't planning for the year. They were worried about what's going to happen next year. But at some point in time, we have to move forward and yeah, we know there's going to be a bubble.
But I know that from an admin standpoint, the emotions of the teachers is really real to you. But remember, we're here for the kids and services that best serve them. And I know that there have been situations historically in Decorah where there's been sections added or taken away. I'm not discounting the fact that there's going to be a bubble that will affect it, all the way through, but I don't think that is. I want to focus on services provided to our kids and the needs of our kids. One of the points brought up earlier was that neglecting to have TK would lead to more intervention later on. And that's an invisible cost that that's an add-in, not a takeaway. But that would be a ripple effect as well.
Add that down also. And the other thing that I thought, Janet's point when she said, the low numbers doesn't change our diversity, that's a very, very true statement. So I mean, I think we all want to do what's best for the kids. I don't think there's a lot of varying on that, but I do think, like you said, maybe on the 25th, we have 18 TK sign up and it works, just works.
Can we add, we did do some research on the intervention because that is a great point that we want to look at. If Andrea wants to speak to this, but unfortunately, we're seeing that a lot of the kids that are getting that year, which is that in the state's eyes, a year that they're being retained, so a year of intervention, are not necessarily showing the academic growth. They're still needing interventions. I don't know if Andrea, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, being a member of the MTSS team, I think just going through and looking at some of the data over the past few years and relating to kids that we are discussing in MTSS and the correlation between those kids that are coming from TK. And we're seeing a really high correlation, and yes, they have had struggled in TK, but that has continued to follow them in their academic career. I'm talking specifically to academic MTSS, but typically it seems like if there's some red flags that we're seeing on the academics, we're not seeing that gap close as they move forward in their elementary years. I think it was 40% thus far this year of our friends that we've discussed in that group that are either repeat kindergartners or from TK. So I think that's a concern as a team as we looked at some of those needs as far as if those academic needs are being met.
I would like to really thank, we've heard from a lot of people the last few days, many emails with so many thoughtful comments. And I do want to thank those people who did take the time to email us and who came to the meeting today. I taught for 31 years, and most of those years were in 5th through 8th grade. And I can say from my experience that though many people think that students catch up if they start school too early or if they're not quite ready, what I often would see in middle school was that students really have not caught up even by middle school if they were not ready to developmentally ready for school. So I think that having TK is an ounce of prevention that is the best practice for our students, and also financially the best practice for our district. Because if we can even keep a few students from needing IEPs and needing us to hire paras for them for 3 years, 5 years, 12 years of their time in school, that's a cost saving to us. Listening to Janet today, is Janet still in the room? Falk? Yeah, I'm just so impressed with what you said, Janet, and with the commitment that you have. And one thing I'd like to ask you, one thing that has come up here is how difficult it is for teachers to go back and forth between this year I'm kindergarten, next year I'm TK. Can you just speak to that for a little bit? Like how difficult is that, and is it worth the is it worth it for us to consider having 2 sections of TK some years, knowing that that might mean a teacher has to go back and forth?
I actually, since I have been in Decorah, I have been steady in TK. I have not been a teacher who has fluctuated. When I first came, we were 2 TK sections, and I worked with another teacher. We did co-teaching, I guess, if you will, for 2 years. And then my 3rd year here, we went down to 1 section, and she went to preschool. She is no longer in the district. She is teaching at another school now. Clarissa, who's here, has been in both TK and kindergarten and has fluctuated back and forth. I have stayed at TK. So, I don't know, she maybe wants to say something about the fluctuation. She'd have a better.
So I taught TK at Westside for 4 years, and then I came to John Klein to teach kindergarten for 4 years, and then was involuntary transferred back to TK. So, I mean, obviously, again, my passion is early childhood. I had taught TK before and taught preschool and taught kindergarten. So, I mean, yes, definitely TK has its challenges, but yeah, I was ready to take it on, and yeah, it was fine. So, yeah, I don't know if you want specific information, but I mean, you follow the kindergarten course, so I mean, there's a lot of similarities too. But yeah, I just did it because I had to. So yeah.
Thank you, Clarissa, for doing it and being flexible in that way. I think one of my biggest fears, if we did follow the recommendation to end TK, this is the last year that I would want to think about doing that. We just had a fall of 50 less students than expected. Why in the world would we not offer a service that we've been on the phone and on email all weekend with parents that they want it and care about it? And I'm just wondering is it, for the stability of keeping 5 sections of 1 grade, is that worth losing even 1 or 2 students when we need students so much? I think we really have to be family focused and parent centered and work together to make our school environment a desirable place to come and learn, not seeking educational opportunities elsewhere. With vouchers that they have money that they can do that.
I have a question, I guess, with my first year being here, is the 20 students at St. Ben's and the 5 at Montessori, is that fairly stable?
That's our best estimate, fairly stable.
But we're kind of at a new.
We
didn't know
really
if that
don't, we
changed.
really don't know
Okay.
until we get them in and get them registered. So,
I was meaning historically.
yeah.
I would go back, and I was gonna interject when I stopped talking and remembered I forgot to bring that up. So thank you for pointing that out, especially for the audience and people that might be listening, because they don't see that. They hear the numbers we talked about, but in reality, right now, we start out with, you know, really, there's probably 117 students in the community that we know of that are eligible, okay, to go to kindergarten. Or
And we know that because they're at preschools right now.
you know that because they're in our preschool systems, going back to our collaborative partners, they're at Head Start, they're at, Little Farmers, which is not one of our collaborative partners, but again, we collaborate with everybody we know in the best interest of the kids and the best interest of our community. So those numbers are giving us that number. And then from there, yeah, historically and voucher system, right now, they capped it out, you know, at 20 at St. Benedict's. That doesn't mean they can't increase that, but that's where they drew a line. So yeah, we would anticipate that they would probably have 20 students out of that 117. And now Northeast Iowa Montessori, which has always been a collaborative partner, but also has expanded and now is an accredited school. The students that go there, which is great. Again, we know the choice is important, and I've always touted about how important, you know, our community is and the variety of different programming and choice that parents have that for the best interest of the kids. But again, right there, you know, right this year, I think there's at least 8 students there, and we anticipate, you know, you would anticipate at least 5 staying there. So that's where, again, you take that and take away that, you know, that 25 right off the bat, and you know, that works its way down. So.
So also, I think it's important to point out that the voucher system is relatively new. This is the second year of that, right?
Yep,
Second year of that
yep,
being an option. And, you know, I think when someone begins in a school system and gets to know the families and the teachers and the kids, it's easy to stay. And while it's easy to talk about historic numbers of students that have gone to private schools in our area, we really need to focus on our youngest learners, beginning with the public school system, in my opinion. I don't want them having to seek, because we don't, you know, I want them to get what they want with our public system without having to seek and get comfortable somewhere else.
With a new school, maybe that'll be a little
more attractive than the current.
And that gets to a bit of my point. Does preschool in Decorah public schools become a larger option for more people
when we have more space?
When we have more space and then the building is in this century, you know, can we build out a preschool program that's larger? And so then the funnel becomes easier for parents, that I can send my kid to preschool. Maybe they do need TK2, and then they're in kindergarten, maybe then they're in first. But what's the linear fashion of how they're spending their time in the public school system? I think that can be smoothed out. Now, in our current situation, I'm going to use the words of our city administrator, that when they were coming to Decorah, they knew the middle school, Harry Lee, the high school, phenomenal. But what do I do with my 3-year-old? And that's the question mark for the new parent in the community. And so, can we maybe find better ways to serve those children potentially? But that's also a choice on the part of the community too. Because if there aren't numbers, you can't fund something. There have to be numbers to back it up. So to Cindy's point, we have to have numbers and kids in school. They're not in our school, and it's harder to fund positions to teach them. And that trickle effect happens. So.
But in that transition time between now and when we do open our new school, when we possibly could do more preschool sections and maybe extend the day a little bit for that morning time that you're talking about, that's difficult for parents. In the meantime, I think that offering TK is really important. And I also think it's very important for us to emphasize to parents that if they are sending their child to TK in Decorah, that the expectation is that they will continue to send their child to Decorah for kindergarten the next year.
It's a really good point, because we do find that we typically have at least 4 spots, that absolutely, that's not the plan. People come to TK very clear with their plan for the future and go to those other buildings.
As a public school, Carol, we don't have the ability to do that. I don't know if you heard, but we maybe have about 4 TKers that then leave for kindergarten.
If they don't stay within the district.
So, which,
It's
That's-
it was absolutely their prerogative.
yeah, parental choice. So,
I do wonder, just throwing out that, and it is hard, because I don't think anyone wants to delay a decision, but I do wonder about delaying a decision until we have an idea what the numbers are. And again, I
So-
bring that, oh, sorry.
This is a review item,
Oh, okay.
which is discussion that will not require a vote.
absolutely.
However,
Oh, sure.
the reason why I pushed to have it on the February agenda is because I am deeply fatigued from hearing from upset families in May. That they don't know that they didn't get into TK and everything else is full. So I think that this is an important discussion for, you know, both the board and all of our stakeholders to have to understand the financial situation that we're facing, the low enrollment numbers, and the tough decision-making that goes into this program every single year. So I think that we've had a robust discussion. I am gonna ask board members to go out on a limb and speak up. I know that this is not a voting item, but what's your temperature tonight of if, when we do get the final numbers, later today, are you in favor or would you support removing the TK plan, or are you in favor of keeping it?
I'll start by saying I have a 4.5-year-old who will be entering John Klein next year in some fashion, whether that's TK potentially or kindergarten. He's a late June birthday, so he fits some of those criteria factors. It's been an ongoing conversation in our household. Which one's the right choice? So I will say that I feel some personal strain on the decision. However, I feel more in favor of keeping a section of TK and potentially looking at how many sections of regular kindergarten do we have to have. If we have to look at downsizing, I'm not saying we have to. But I'm saying if we have to look at the number of sections, that's the direction I would go versus elimination of TK. And I say that with all full understanding and cognizance of what I'm saying, that potentially we're going to have to look at down the line, whether that's a kindergarten teacher this year, first grade teacher next year, or at what point, how far does the ripple go before we have to make a change? I'm not saying that's this year, but we're going to have to look at what the numbers are at some point to make an adjustment, a right sizing.
My gut feeling is it's a great program, and you don't want to eliminate something that there's a need for. And then on the backside of it, you have to be able to fund that need. And so at this current time, I can say I am not willing to speak in favor of ending the TK program because I don't feel like we have enough information to make that definitive statement. Now, what does that mean in a month or two when we get final numbers? I think that's maybe could be a harder discussion, but at this point, it's a little different for me. We weren't in the school district. Our kids came in Carrie Lee and middle school. So, I mean, like I've shared with some people up until recently, I wasn't really even aware of what our TK program was because we didn't use it. My oldest is graduating this year and he has a late June birthday and he did go forward. He'll graduate at the age of 17 and there was thoughts when he went forward if it was right. And there was times throughout that we thought, well, at this point, I'm happy with that decision, but there is times when you have a little struggle, you wonder if you made the right decision. So I feel for all the parents in the room. And I do appreciate all the communication that we have had. I mean, everybody here is passionate about the kids, they're passionate about the school, and they're passionate about their learning opportunities. So that's great. So that's kind of where I stand right now. I mean, I know there's tough decisions that are going to have to be made. And you're never gonna make those decisions that's popular straight across the board. When it comes to those times, I just don't feel like today we're at that
Mhm,
point.
mhm, mhm. Carol, how about you?
As I look at the numbers, if we're looking at 92 and let's say it comes out perfectly and we have 18 students who would qualify for TK and their parents want them in TK. And that's the cap, right? 18. That would put our other 4 sections at 18 or 19 students for kindergarten. Am I looking at the numbers correctly there? If it all turns out to be just exactly how we wish it would be?
With 4 sections, that would be the number.
That's
With
cutting
4
the section.
sections.
Yeah, right now we
That
have
would
5
mean-
sections of kindergarten.
Yeah,
And so that's the second issue is just the enrollment in general.
yes.
The issue of TK is the first one to address, but the other one is just what our enrollment of kindergarten would be. And so Carol, understanding, right now we have 1 section of TK and 5 of kindergarten.
Right. So that would mean we would have 1 less section of kindergarten next year, and still be able to have fewer than 20 students in each section, correct?
That is correct.
Looking at,
And I think, Carol, that's where this all comes from. Nobody is wanting to cut TK. Like, that's no one's goal. I think everybody here understands the benefit
Oh,
of TK.
I,
It just is
yeah.
coming down to if we have to cut one or the other, what is the tricky decision? Keep it 6 sections.
Yeah, I would not be in favor of cutting TK and moving those students more quickly through kindergarten, because I think we're going to end up paying for it later financially and with students learning. And we also might push more students away into using an ESA and going to another school. And I certainly don't want to do that. So at this point, I would be very much opposed to closing down the TK program. I think I would rather look at other cuts that we might be able to make in other places in the district that do not affect our earliest learners. I think giving students that the best advantage we can to be ready to learn makes their learning better for 12, 13, with kindergarten, 13 years. And I think it's emotionally and academically and financially our best move.
Yep, I don't have anything new or different to add that I haven't already said, but I care deeply about enrollment and I don't want any excuse for someone to go anywhere else. So. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next agenda item, which is approval of the 2025-2026 type of school calendar, hours versus days.
Yeah, so we've got 2 in a row on calendar, and this is just simply saying the recommendation is to use an hour calendar versus a day's calendar. Gives us more flexibility, allows us to possibly forgive a day or 2 if we have enough hours built up. Very common to use the hours calendar. In fact, I believe Decorah and Linmar were the last 2 districts that I know of to go off of the day's calendar.
And we have been on an hours calendar this is our second, no, or is this our first school year on hours? Trying to remember.
But
Second,
there's
I
at
think.
least a second. I thought you were on hours before I got here, so I might say, I'm in my 3rd year, so this could be about our 4th hours calendar, to be
Okay,
honest with you.
I think third,
Okay,
but regardless.
Sure.
This would be to stay with hours is staying with what we currently
Yeah.
are in and gives us more flexibility with our overall schedule.
I'm very much in favor of the hours-based calendar. After living through both, I think that it's much better in our climate to have the hours-based calendar. And I will just say, I appreciate the high school this year changing their start time to add a little bit more time onto the calendar. The day, I think that's helped make a difference, and I appreciate the high school, being flexible to do that.
Yeah, agreed. And I know that change was not easy or welcomed by everyone, so glad that it's working out. Thanks, Brad. Sending my thoughts and prayers to you and your team.
I mean, I also prefer the hours versus days. Tim and I were reminiscing on this, that when you're on a day's calendar and you miss a day of school and you have to make it up, sometimes that means you're teaching on the Tuesday after Memorial Day. And
or in June.
Yeah, and what does that feel like? What is the educational outcome potentially of those days? And I prefer the hours because it gives us more flexibility. It gives us a lot more options around how we can spend our time and best use it, making sure that every hour we're in is important.
I agree.
Okay.
I'll move that we approve the 2025-2026 school calendar using hours as proposed.
I'll second.
Okay, I think Brad beat you to it, Carol.
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
There's a slight delay maybe. Anyway, hearing a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Carol.
I saw
Yep,
Carol.
I did say aye, yeah, sorry. I know there's a
Okay.
delay with the Zoom.
Okay, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of the 2025-2026 academic calendar. So Tim, do you want to talk us through any highlights of this final version?
It's as we talked last month, it starts on Monday, August 25th, which is not, it's never desired to start a full week of school. But we recognize the fact that current state law is you can't start until August 23rd. And there may be a change in that law. If there is, I would probably revisit and try to start. I'm hearing they might let us start as early as Wednesday the 20th, but they also said that last year, so I'm not holding my breath. That just put together a year very similar to what we had this year. People liked using the comp day as the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Christmas and New Year's are on Thursdays, so we go to school on that Monday and Tuesday of Christmas week. And you're done. Last day of school is Tuesday the 19th, I believe. So that gives you 3 days, 3 snow days that you could still get done before Memorial Day. And you know, of course, not to jinx this year, but we've had 1 snow day and we're right up against that Friday.
With snow in the forecast, that is.
Well, I
really
know,
to throw that out there like that.
and the snow is supposed to be south, but yes, I did quietly knock on some wood there.
Yeah.
But I suppose there's video evidence, that I said that. The feedback I got, I shared with the board, 2 people, I had a teacher, we did text it out to everybody in the district or emailed it out to everybody in the district. We had a teacher just ask about if the bill goes through, would we revisit the start of the school year? Absolutely. And then a young man emailed me and wondered if we couldn't have the 4-day weekend around Super Bowl weekend so we could have Monday off after the Super Bowl. And I thought that was fantastic. So I had to explain to them, you know, we kind of put it with the conference comp day and President's Day. And so all we need to do is get the Super Bowl moved to the Sunday before President's Day and we're all set.
Perfect.
So, other than that, I think the attributes of the calendar this year that people liked, we continued. And the one I think I heard the most about was that Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Obviously, 2 weeks at Christmas was also popular, but where Christmas lies, that wasn't feasible this year.
This year was special.
Yeah.
And that will not always be possible.
So, but that's our recommended calendar.
Any questions for Tim? Thoughts or ideas?
Nope. Good, I'll make a motion to approve the item number C, the calendar. Letter C, not number C.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item D is approval of 2025-2026 fees.
And so this is one document. We try to keep everything together, understand that we're just approving items, letters A through D. So the instructional fees, the technology fee, the tile fee, and the instrumental rental fee. We'll bring this back when we add in the activity passes and the food service and all that. Our fees went up just a little bit. We kind of reflected some of our costs there, but not, it was, I guess, $2 and $5 with some of the instructional fees. Technology fees we kept the same, tile fee we kept the same, and we something that we hadn't identified in the past was like one of our buildings had a percussion fee that was less, and that's because when you rent an instrument from the district, the one district instrument you don't take home is the percussion. You might take home a trumpet or a saxophone, but you don't walk out the door with our drum kit. So we're only going to charge you $30 if you are renting a percussion. So, but we have the history of all the fees there, and that's.
Yeah, thanks for having that comparative data. It's super helpful to see. So we're looking at the 2019-2020 school year to date to see how that's changed over time. And then at the bottom of that table, you'll see the sub salaries.
Yeah. We traditionally for the subs try to be competitive with the market, and
Right.
I haven't heard what other districts are doing yet. So that's the kind of thing where we'll look and be competitive with that. So that's why we're just doing the part in white, and the shaded part is just to kind of reflect that we don't have those numbers in yet.
So we are looking to approve A through D.
A through D.
Okay.
Letters A through D, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I wish we didn't have to raise any of the fees, but with inflation, I mean, it is what it is. If we, if we need to do that, then we just do, and it's a small amount.
Well, I'll make the motion to approve line item D. For the fees.
I'll second that.
Hearing a motion and a second, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Carol's mouth moved, so she also said
I
aye.
did say aye.
Great. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, item E, approval of budget guarantee.
So the budget guarantee it's that part of the code that when your enrollment drops down, the state guarantees you for 1 year, 101% of your funding. And so you pass this when you have declining enrollment, which we did, of course, this year. As kind of a reminder, the budget guarantee gives us authority to generate money. Unfortunately, you have to generate that money locally, so it becomes local tax dollars versus state funding, which is state tax dollars. But it's essential to us operating our budget. So as Kathy and I work on our budget in the next month, we need to make sure we have the budget guarantee passed. So that's why it's here.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about that? Helping with our own budgeting process and financial planning for the district.
I would only note my hope and wish that the state would pass a larger supplemental state aid grant.
That is yet to come. Unless I missed some big news today, but yeah.
And that would be the one thing that would take us off, the budget guarantee is if SSA were something like 9 or 10%. So we're not gonna hold our breath,
Yeah,
but we still want to pass the budget guarantee, but excellent point, Aaron, that is contingent. A budget guarantee is contingent on your enrollment dropping down below, but SSA makes up the other part of that.
mhm,
So
mhm.
I move that we approve the budget guarantee for the school year.
I'll
I'll
second.
Give it to Carol, she beat.
Okay, Carol's got it this time. So moved by Director Zander and seconded by Director Sand. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item F is approval of district agreement between Northwestern College Department of Education and Decorah Community School District.
this just gives us permission to invite student teachers from Northwestern College into the district, which
Right.
we would love to have. You know, it's a pretty standard thing that colleges send out. I can't say that I recall us having a student teacher from Northwestern College, but it's always nice to have those in place. Sometimes someone might be a local person who
Yeah.
would say, oh, I'd like to student teach near my hometown and I could stay with my parents, so.
They also did send all of their teachers that are gonna be graduating
They did.
this spring.
Oh.
So that was very helpful.
Great.
Yeah,
With their degrees.
with their
Nice.
degrees. So absolutely. And we should see more and more, you should see probably a UNI one and
Mhm,
a Luther College one, it
Yeah.
should be coming. down.
throughout the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember looking at a variety of these last year. It just feel very boilerplate,
Yeah.
similar to the others.
I'll make a motion to approve the line item F for Northwestern College.
Second.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of professional services agreement with Shive Hattery for the high school roof and Carrie Lee roof projects, which
Yeah.
we will be working on sections of that roof.
Yeah, so the section of the high school is the, above the kind of cafeteria area. It is one of those armor-like roofs that we just took off the middle school. It might be in worse shape than the middle school roof was, which is kind of scary.
Yeah,
Sean made me go up on the roof on a very cold day, and that was also scary.
Hey, yeah, let's not just stay off the roofs. We don't need to. No.
So, but that roof is in bad shape. We're just a little surprised it doesn't leak more. That was recommended by Shive Hattery to be replaced. And then we're looking at the Carrie Lee gymnasium, the pitched roof that we'll have to do shingles on. We were kind of hoping that these projects would be less than the threshold, so we didn't have to hire an architect, but we do. They're predicted that the I'm gonna get this wrong, Sean, is it 280 for the Carrie Lee
280 for Carrie Lee.
and 200 for the high school?
Mhm. And this is funded out of couple.
Capital save, which we'll look at, the next item will be looking at our capital improvements, because it's on that list,
Okay,
but typically you do small sections of your roofs. Most districts would try to do like $80,000 at a time, so they could just work with the roofing contractor and piecemeal the roof together and not hire an architect, but it's not the end of the world to hire somebody to do it and then you get it done right, but
well, I know that Shive Hattery has been great to work with.
yes, absolutely.
I'm really proud that we're to the point that we have a complete audit of all the roofs in our district, so we know
huge.
what
Yeah.
leaks and what needs attention, and we're slowly working through and making
Yeah.
improvements to
Absolutely.
maintain our facilities, so that's a good position to be in. We also have, again, this is not money out of our general fund, this is out of our Pebble Save Fund, which allows us to pay for improvements like this. So our action tonight is to consider approving the selection of an architect and or an engineer.
I'll make a motion to approve the line item G for the architect and the engineer.
I'll second that.
Okay, hearing a motion in a second. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now the capital projects list.
Lots of times these are called summer projects, just because we do them during the summer. But this is taking our Pebble and our Save. And so if you start at the top, Kathy went through it and we have got an anticipated carryover in the Pebble budget of a little over $2.1 million. We have anticipated revenue in that account being $1.5 million. We no longer have any bond payments coming out of there. So that means we have $3.7 million in Pebble funds available. The proposed expenditures are almost $1 million. So we anticipate having $3.7 million available and then spending about $1 million, leaving us with 2.7. And so if you go right down below, the Pebble projects are the 2 roofs and then John Klein roof patch. We're strategically trying to do what we need and do fewer wants on these projects so that we can build up a fund balance with our Pebble and Save, because we know we have a new school coming and the ability to use these funds to help with those projects will be very helpful. I missed the other parts of the Pebble projects are LP filling station, possible vehicle to run in town, 2 new buses, and then improvements out here for gutters. And the way this has worked in the past, the board kind of approves the concept of the capital improvements. And then we've had a threshold of, I believe it was $50,000, so that any item that could be less than $50,000, we can just do once it's approved by the board. And if it's more than $50,000, then we bring that bid back to the board for approval, which surely makes sense. I know the board has had some discussions about that, well, if we've approved it, why can't they just do it? But I'm totally fine with bringing the numbers back because
Yep, I like that too.
you guys can see them. I'm just, so our Pebble is a lot of focused on roofs and transportation. The Save, just kind of running through, we anticipate, we do have some Save bond payments, but we anticipate starting the year with about 4.7 million. And right now spending 1.3 million. But if you go down, you'll notice that we don't have all our estimates in. And so what happens a lot of times is sometimes the work doesn't get done. Sometimes the estimate comes by too high or just higher than we adjusted. Very seldom do our estimates come in lower. If you look at the Save expenditures, the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 are just kind of things from Luther swimming pool rental fee to student lease computer that we know those are fixed costs that we pay every year. And then the rest of this kind of becomes a wish list of that gets generated with Curtis and myself and the principals and technology department and the activities director. So we see in here, I don't need to read them all to you, but it can be rigging, smart interactive smart boards. There's some furniture, year 3 of the furniture for Carrie Lee, which we talked about in the past, fixing sidewalks. Probably the one we're maybe the most excited about is the GPS robot painter to line the football field and the soccer field and the baseball diamond, among other things, because it's GPS and you push a button, you get it all lined up and you push a button. And then you go do work somewhere else and the robot does all the painting.
I think MFL has one of those.
Yes, MSL does have one of those. So we're not the first ones to have this. Technology works super well, and then it just saves us, it will save us manpower. And Sean spent 2 months, 3 months as the maintenance director, and he said we needed to get a robot painter.
Yeah.
So that maybe reflects about how much fun it is to paint on.
Curtis, thank you for being here tonight, and Chris, Sean, and everybody. Do you have anything specific or to add to the?
I don't. I mean, that's that robot painter, like Tim was saying, is going to save us. It's going to save us a lot of manpower, a lot of man hours that could be used in other maintenance around the football field that I believe is needed. So that would be, I think it'd be money well spent.
Okay.
I see you having a question mark there, city share, is that just a?
Go ahead, Curtis.
I've been in conversation with Blake Moen, the director for recreation. I think that's his title.
Yeah.
He's doing man hours on the ground with the kids and stuff, and they have a lot of fields that they paint at Will Baker Park, and whether it be soccer or football or whatever their activity is. So I thought that would be a good early on was a good way to kind of share this expense. Going forward, it was I think the best would be that we would maybe do the painting for them so that we're in control of the maintenance and
Kind of was my thought.
and the operations, and they just pay us for the paint in our time, which
Okay.
could be determined.
So kind of on a contracted basis.
Could be.
Yeah.
Other highlights, I think most excited about the robot painter, but also we've got some costs in here for pad for LP fueling. And then Chris, potential like used vehicles. I know you started to look at the numbers with the drivers. So in the past, when they kept the vehicle at home, they would drive from their house to their route, drive their route, drive back to their house with the school bus. And then at the end of the day, they would drive the school bus back to the route, do the route, and drive back to the house. So the changes, a few people can keep their bus at home, but during the day, you don't need to run it back to your house because you know where you're going to be starting your route at one of the two schools.
So I specifically redesigned a couple of the routes, so it would benefit if we actually have them start their route with their bus at home.
Right.
As opposed to
remember
driving to get to their route.
Mhm.
And it, just off the top of my head, I think we're averaging 30 to 40 miles per day per vehicle, and we're kind of continuously like 2 vehicles a day. If we had a third, we'd expand that to a third. When we start putting those numbers each day, 30 to 60 miles between the two vehicles, that's considerable
That
amount of
adds up.
miles.
Mhm.
Because a school bus is gonna get 10 miles per gallon, and if
That's downhill with the wind.
yeah, okay. So potentially we could, for funsies, bring in some numbers and just talk about what it saves to literally have a vehicle for them to drive home and not
Yeah.
put costs on our bus.
Yeah, well, thanks
So-
for continuing to find those efficiencies, and it's nice to have a healthy fleet of smaller vehicles to save in just
Yeah. it's a
all
lot
areas
easier to manage.
of staff and student transportation.
I'm also
And we
glad
saw-
2 LP buses on there, and I think that that'll be interesting to see how much more efficient those are and how well we like those buses to be able to turn them off and not have to keep like a diesel bus to keep it running and running and running. I think that'll save on fuel and also on the environment. So thanks, Chris, for all this good work.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask Mr. Riley if he had any comments on We did see the 12 board member Fondness and I saw the 12 passenger van down at Girls State Wrestling. So that was getting used. That was a nice feature.
Those 12 passenger vans have, last weekend was the hands down busiest. We had no extra vehicle available within the district. And
So basketball team's been using them quite a bit too, when it's just varsity.
Yep, when it's just varsity, and work some different pieces with that. That we,
Right, putting them to work.
yeah, last weekend we would have had to send somebody in a couple different buses if we didn't actually have those 12 passenger vans.
Right. Good.
From the activities perspective, any other highlights? Maybe the softball refurb old b-ball scoreboard.
Yeah, I mean, there's several different pieces. We still got a little bit of finished work that we've got to be able to do with the softball renovation. That project has come along really well. Just some additional pieces to make sure we can continue to maintain that field correctly. Well, and then obviously we've got a larger scoreboard that we would like to be able to repaint, remount. Still fully functional and all the other pieces with that. So you can see there's a number of different items on the list there, just as we continue to try to stay ahead of the curve. Putting some new garage doors in the auditorium. Like getting a number of different pieces of that covered and taken care of.
Great.
So, yeah, as I said, more than comfortable if the board wants to approve it, and then anything that's over $50,000, we'll just bring back in for board approval. And we'll continue to work on our list, and I'm sure we'll bring it back as we get some estimates on some of these yellow cells filled in.
So do we need to approve it now, even though we don't have, I mean, we have all these yellow areas that don't have any estimates?
The nice thing about approving it now is then we can officially start on all, like Curtis can go out and get his robot painter and maybe use it for soccer season.
Okay.
So there's talk that you can put 2 designs for free in it. So one I think is going to be a Viking head, and another one might be a bust of Mr. Albers. We haven't decided.
You're gonna need a lot of paint.
We have to consider how much paint that'll cost, though.
Thinking back to last year, what's our update on how many smart boards we're still working on replacing?
So we put in 5 this year. They're the 5 that did the initial trial. So we didn't do a lot of them this last year. The hope would be to do 50 this summer, over the summer months, having put in place. The good part about the 5 is the 5 teachers have kind of trialed all of the software and the hardware. They're the people who are the trainer model and help us out getting everybody going and ask the questions.
Good.
It's been really good with smart word technology and other 3 options that we did try out.
Right.
So a lot better.
And not all the questions are funneling straight to you. That's really great.
Yeah.
Good.
So if we're replacing 50, do you know how many that leaves us with the old models?
It would be none in the elementaries, and there would be just a few at the high school, middle school. I don't know off the top of my head what that is. They all come with a 7-year warranty, which that was a question I've had in the past, which is nice. The hope would be these come with a mount that moves up and down, so it's offset from the wall. It's not like a normal TV mount. Makes it a little nicer to move around.
The cable infrastructure or internet infrastructure is such that it can support this new technology.
Yes, it is.
Great. Good. Any other questions about the list?
I move that we approve the capital projects through with and pay for them with PEPAL and SAFE funds for 2025, 2026.
Second.
Okay, I'm hearing a motion in a second. Any further discussion of approving this concept?
Yeah, I was gonna say preliminary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Knowing that expenses of 50,000 or more will be presented to the board as they come up. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we are to the superintendent's
Yeah, the
report.
listed was the debt service resolution, which is not ready, so we won't have that. I may ask for a special,
yes.
I may ask for a
skipped over
special,
that.
you're fine,
Yes.
you're fine. May ask for a special meeting because that's a piece of information that Kathy really needs for the March 4th budget.
Right,
And there's some, so I'll know more tomorrow.
Okay.
About if we can just put a number in and approve it at the March meeting or whether we need to do it ahead of time. At 2:00.
we deeply respect the work that you do, Kathy, and we'll try to get you the information so you can proceed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so more to come on that. And now the superintendent's report.
I had just put some notes about the capital projects. We do have 2 vehicles that we're gonna put up for bid that we don't feel comfortable about having those be our runner vehicles in town. They're in such rough shape, but feel free to bid on the 2007 Chevy Uplander with the cracked head and the 2007 Ford F-250 that excessive rust may be an understatement.
Yeah.
But we also know that we'd like to put those up for bid locally with an ad in the paper. Because we feel like there's probably some folks in this community that could get some service out of us. It probably would get us the best best prices. So other than that, I've got some notes about the robotic painter and just I put the Allers and Cooney's notes on immigration and school policies in. I did send a letter out last week about the immigration and so that I had some 1 or 2 questions about that. Lots of people supported, but 1 or 2 questions about our enrollment policies and just directed that person to state what the state code is and what the Department of Ed says we ask for when we register students. And that has changed over the last 30 years in my time in education. It's just different what students bring to or what parents bring or guardians bring when they register. So the other thing is the school calendar is updated. So right now, the last day of school is Friday, May 23rd, and we'll get that. I would show that to the board, but that's just because we had that, was it the cold day? It wasn't even a snow day. It was that cold day on.
Oh, right.
That Tuesday.
That Tuesday, yeah. Tuesday, 21st. So we are officially, right now, our last day of school is Friday, the 23rd of May.
Okay.
I have a senior that would like more days canceled.
He's
getting pouty.
Yeah, he kind of is getting gypped. I empathize with him.
Yeah, I don't.
So I think those are the highlights of my report.
Okay, well, thank you for being in touch with Allers and Cooney on the immigration guidance. It's important for our staff and community to be informed and supported. Okay, Kathy, financials.
If you take a look at the cash flow report, you look at the receipts compared to last year, we're up. We're also up in expenditures. But then I decided to take a look at the all funds revenue and expenditure report. So that kind of gives you what's coming in and what's coming out on a cash basis. So general fund, we're up 588,000, but again, we're getting the state funding. We're still watching how the AA monies is going to flow through the fund or through the account. Management, you can see we're down 154,000, but our insurance premium is always due at the very beginning of the school year. So
right,
our second tax payment from, property tax will boost that back up.
Okay,
Most of the accounts are just down a little bit, but overall, I feel very confident we're doing just fine.
okay. Any questions for Kathy? Hearing none, and we are at the end of our agenda, so I will officially call the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.